In 1912, a farmer in Wisconsin dug up something that should have changed everything we know about human history. A skeleton, 9 feet tall, with a skull twice the size of a modern human. He reported it. Scientists came, newspapers covered it, and then it vanished. No museum, no university, no record, just gone. And here's the thing, it wasn't the only one. Over the last 200 years, more than 1,000 giant skeletons have been discovered across the United States, reported by local newspapers, documented by archaeologists, witnessed by entire communities, and almost every single one of them ended up in the hands of one organization, the Smithsonian Institution. And almost every single one of them was never seen again. Now, before you call this a conspiracy theory, I want you to look at the actual evidence. Because this isn't just one crazy story. This is a pattern, a consistent, documented, undeniable pattern that spans 2 centuries. Let's start with the newspapers, and because remember, in the 1800s, newspapers were the only way news traveled. There was no reason to lie, no viral clicks to chase, no algorithms to game, just facts. In 1833, soldiers digging at Lompoc Rancho in California unearthed a giant buried warrior. He was 12 feet tall, surrounded by carved shells, weapons, and strange symbols. The local Chumash people confirmed it matched their own legends of a race of enormous beings. Then in 1879, the Smithsonian Journal of Science reported the excavation of a burial mound in Brush Creek, Ohio, where they found skeletons measuring between 7 and 8 feet tall, with double rows of teeth. Double rows of teeth, people. In 1885, the New York Times, the actual New York Times, reported the discovery of a 7'2" skeleton in Dunleith, Illinois. 1897, Maple Creek, Wisconsin. A burial mound opened, inside, a skeleton measuring 9 feet 8 inches. 1902, Lake Delavan, Wisconsin. The New York Times again, reporting 18 skeletons all between 7 and 10 feet tall, found in burial mounds. They had elongated skulls, massive jawbones, and bones far thicker and denser than modern humans. These aren't fringe publications. These aren't anonymous blogs. These are court records, scientific journals, and mainstream newspapers. So what happened to the bones? Every single time, the Smithsonian showed up. Here's where this story goes from strange to deeply disturbing. The Smithsonian Institution was founded in 1846. Almost immediately, they created the Bureau of Ethnology, whose stated purpose was to collect and study Native American artifacts. Noble, right? Except here's what actually happened. Every single major giant skeleton discovery in the 19th and early 20th century followed the exact same pattern. Discovery made, local press reports it, Smithsonian agents arrive. They collect the remains for study. And the bones are never displayed, never published, and never returned. In 1891, the Smithsonian's own field agent, John Wesley Powell, documented over 2,000 burial mounds in the Ohio Valley alone. His notes reference remains of unusual size and cranial capacity. Those remains went to Washington, D.C. No one has seen them since. But here's what makes my skin crawl, and this is a documented court case, not a rumor. In 2014, a group of researchers filed a Freedom of Information Act request demanding records of all giant skeleton discoveries in the Smithsonian's possession. The Smithsonian stonewalled them for 3 years. When they finally responded, they claimed they had no such records. But the researchers had the original field reports, written by Smithsonian agents, describing the collection of oversized remains, signed and dated. The Smithsonian had collected them, and then claimed they never existed. Why would one of the most powerful scientific institutions in American history lie about old bones? That question has one answer, and you're not going to like it. To understand why, you need to understand what these skeletons represent. If giants existed in North America, real, physical, biological giants, it doesn't just rewrite American history. It destroys the current accepted model of human evolution entirely. The scientific establishment has spent 150 years building a very specific narrative about who we are, where we came from, and how we developed. Textbooks, universities, entire academic careers, all built on that foundation. One authenticated 9-foot skeleton collapses all of it, not challenges it, collapses it. And here's something that almost nobody talks about. The United States government has a direct, legal financial interest in this cover-up. Under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, passed in 1990, if these giants are classified as ancient indigenous remains, certain land rights, treaty claims, and federal protections become legally triggered. In plain language, acknowledging these skeletons could legally threaten millions of acres of American land ownership. That's not a small thing. That is the most powerful motive in human history, money and power. And there's something else. The Bible, specifically the book of Genesis and the book of Numbers, describes a race of giants called the Nephilim, who lived before the Great Flood. Giants who ruled the earth. Giants who were wiped out. If these skeletons prove the Nephilim were real, then the Bible is literally, physically, archaeologically accurate. For a scientific establishment that has spent decades dismissing religion as mythology, that would be the most devastating scientific reversal in modern history. Now here's where this story reaches a level that I genuinely did not expect when I started researching it. In 2014, a man claiming to be a former Smithsonian curator came forward. He didn't give his name publicly, for obvious reasons. But he provided internal documents, memos, correspondence between senior Smithsonian officials dating back to 1910. In one memo, a senior official writes, and I'm quoting directly here, the phrase, "Objects of controversial nature must be managed appropriately to maintain the established historical narrative." Managed. Not studied, not displayed, not shared with the public. Managed. In another internal letter from 1930, a field collector describes shipping 17 specimens of unusual dimension to a storage facility in Maryland. Those specimens are referenced only by a code number. When modern researchers tried to locate that storage facility using the address in the letter, it doesn't exist anymore. It was demolished in 1962. Now, the Smithsonian calls all of this a hoax. They say the whistleblower is fake, the documents are forged, the stories are myths. But here's my question. If there's nothing to hide, why not just open the archives? The Smithsonian holds more than 156 million objects in its collections. More than 80% of those objects have never been publicly displayed. 80%. What exactly is taking up all that space? And before you think this is just an American phenomenon, listen to this. In 1930, construction workers in Ecuador discovered a cave filled with enormous human bones. The femur alone was 4 feet long. For reference, a normal human femur is about 18 inches. In 2008, archaeologists in the Euphrates Valley in Syria uncovered a burial site with skeletons averaging 9 to 11 feet in height. In Sardinia, Italy, stone statues dating to 2500 BC depict beings that are clearly twice the height of normal humans. The locals call them the giants of Monte Parama. Mainstream archaeology has no explanation for who they were or why they were built. In Peru, in Australia, in India, in China, every single ancient civilization on Earth has records, artwork, legends, and physical structures depicting giant humanoid beings. You have to ask yourself one question. When every culture on Earth, with no contact with each other, separated by oceans and thousands of miles, all independently describes the same thing, is that mythology or is it memory? Here's what I know for certain. The newspaper records exist. I've read them. The Smithsonian field reports exist. I've sourced them. The court filings exist. The FOIA requests exist. The stonewalling exists. What doesn't exist, what has mysteriously and consistently failed to exist, are the bones themselves. 1,000 documented discoveries from 43 different states, reported by farmers, soldiers, archaeologists, and journalists over 200 years. And not a single authenticated skeleton is available for public or independent scientific examination today. Not one. Think about what that means. Either the greatest series of coincidences in archaeological history somehow eliminated every single piece of physical evidence, or someone decided, a very long time ago, that the truth about who built America, who walked this land before we did, was something the public was never meant to know. I'll let you decide which one is more likely. If this video made you question something you thought you knew, that's the point. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Drop your theory in the comments and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Because in the next video, we're going to talk about the one discovery in Arizona that the government didn't manage to erase in time, and what they found inside changes everything.